Okay, let's dive into something I think, well, a lot of us experience, but maybe don't really talk about openly. That feeling right when you're waking up.
That space between sleep and full awareness.
Exactly. It's like this really fragile moment.
Right.
Your body's still heavy, maybe from dreams, and your mind hasn't quite put on its me costume for the day yet.
It's a crucial sliver of time, isn't it? That moment of almost pure awareness before all the internal chatter really kicks in.
Yeah, it's often the quietest part of the house, the quietest time of day, but inside, sometimes it feels the loudest.
That's a common paradox.
And then often with absolutely no logical reason, no alarm blaring, no crisis happening, right then this dread just arrives. It's not usually a big bang, more like a quiet hum.
A tightening, maybe?
Yeah, tightening in the chest, or sometimes I notice my jaws clench, a little buzz of adrenaline. And you look around, the room is peaceful, dawn might be breaking, but your heart is already going like you're facing some kind of threat.
Right there at the foot of the bed.
It's that baffling thing, anxiety that feels like it comes out of nowhere, an urgency with no object.
And that untethered feeling, that lack of an obvious why. I think that's what really amps up the suffering. Our minds immediately scramble to find a reason.
We jump to thinking, what's wrong with me?
Exactly. Am I broken? Or we frantically scan the environment for a cause that just isn't there. And when we can't find one outside, we tend to turn that blame inwards.
That first reaction, I must be flawed.
Yeah.
It's so automatic and so unhelpful, really.
It really is. And I think that's our core aim in this deep dive, isn't it? To challenge that very assumption.
Yeah. Not about trying to fix this feeling as if it's a defect.
No, much more about shifting our whole relationship to it, moving from seeing it as condemnation to seeing it potentially as information.
So moving away from asking, why am I so anxious? Which kind of implies there's something wrong with me.
And moving towards a more curious question, like, okay, this feeling is here. What might it be trying to protect me from?
That reframing feels huge. But practically, how do you stop your mind doing that automatic I'm flawed thing when the physical feeling itself is genuinely, uncomfortable, almost painful sometimes?
It's a practice, definitely not a switch you flip. But the first step is really internalizing that this unease isn't random noise. It's not a system malfunction.
Okay.
It's more like a very old, very deep signal. It's echoing up from your nervous system, from your unconscious mind. The mind that wakes up anxious is actually trying to do its job.
Its job. Which is what, in this context?
Survival, fundamentally.
Right.
Even if the threat it perceives is outdated or internal, the response itself is rooted in a biological imperative to keep you safe. Realizing it's functional, even if maybe overactive or misplaced, that allows a little space for curiosity.
Instead of just judgment.
Exactly. Curiosity and maybe even a little compassion for this part of you that's working so hard.
Okay, let's go back to that precise moment, that threshold. The shift from stillness, maybe even peace, into this quiet urgency. No fire alarm, no presentation due in 10 minutes, but the body's already on high alert.
Code red, as you said.
Yeah. It really feels like the body got a memo that the brain hasn't even read yet.
And that's precisely why sometimes just trying to think your way out of it, surface level cognitive tricks, doesn't quite cut it. It doesn't get to the embodied roots.
Right.
So if we look at this through, say, a Buddhist psychology lens, especially the teachings around suffering or dukkha, this isn't free-floating noise. It is a signal. It's information coming from your nervous system about your internal state.
Not necessarily about what's happening outside right now.
Correct. Much more about your internal landscape.
So if it's not irrational, where's the logic? What's it signaling?
Well, the traditional understanding points to something called tanha. It's often translated as craving, but it's broader than that. It's really this fundamental thirst or push-pull energy. It has three main flavors, really. There's craving, wanting things you don't have, wanting reality to be different. There's aversion, pushing away what you don't want, resisting the present moment. And then there's a kind of fundamental ignorance, or maybe delusion, not seeing things as they really are, especially their impermanence.
And this isn't just some abstract idea.
Not at all. It lives in the body. That tightening in your chest when you wake up, that's aversion, physically resisting the what is. That frantic urge to grab your phone or plan the day, that could be craving, trying to seize control. The belief that this anxious feeling is you, that's the ignorance part.
Wow. So those energies are already active, even before the thinking mind fully boots up.
Often, yes. They're deeply embedded physiological and mental patterns.
That makes the connection feel much more direct. The racing heart is Tana showing up physically. Okay, let's talk about that lake analogy. I found that really helpful for visualizing this.
Yes, it's a wonderful metaphor. Imagine your mind is like a lake. Throughout your busy day, the winds are blowing emails, deadlines, social interactions, worries, desires. The surface of the lake is choppy, maybe a bit murky.
Constantly stirred up.
Exactly, everything's in motion. But then, at night, when you rest, the external winds die down. The surface becomes still.
And things settle.
Things settle. But crucially, the very fine sediment that was always suspended in the water, held up by all that daytime activity, it starts to rise. Or maybe the water clears enough that you can finally see the sediment at the bottom.
The unseen stuff. What is that sediment usually?
It's everything unresolved. It might be old griefs you never fully process, lingering insecurities about your worth, fears about the future, maybe financial worries, relationship tensions, all the subtle, chronic stresses and unresolved emotional business.
Stuff that was always there, just hidden by the daily churn.
Precisely. So that unease you feel in the morning, that tightness, it's often not a new thread appearing. It's the surfacing or the becoming visible of what was always lurking in the depths. The quiet of the morning simply stops the churning and allows you to perceive what's been carried all along.
That changes everything. Suddenly it doesn't feel irrational at all. It feels like my nervous system is just, well, accurately reporting on the internal weather.
Exactly. It's rational from its perspective. It's reacting to the internal history that's now suddenly clear and present because the external noise has stopped.
It completely stops me from blaming myself. It's not a malfunction. It's sensitivity to what's actually inside.
You've got it. You shift from seeing yourself as broken to seeing yourself as having a system that's diligently relaying information. Information you might have been too busy to notice yesterday.
The house isn't empty. It's just Gilly. The lights came on, and you see the clutter.
A very good way to put it. And the watchman inside, seeing all this suddenly visible clutter, naturally sounds the alarm.
Okay. That shift from self-blame to curiosity, that feels like the entry point. Asking, okay, what's being revealed here? Instead of, why is this happening to me? Hashtag take two. The ego as the anxious night watchman. So if that tension, that sediment is the message, let's talk about the messenger, the ego, you framed it not as this bad guy, but more like a well-intentioned guardian.
Yes, that's a helpful way to think about it, especially in this context. Not the ego as an arrogance, but ego as the process that creates and defends our sense of self.
Right.
It's a collection of survival strategies, habits, defense mechanisms, all built up over time with the primary goal of protecting this identity, this me, which it perceives as inherently fragile and needing constant management.
So if it's a guardian, why does it trigger so much anxiety, especially when things are seemingly safe, like first thing in the morning?
It operates out of deep habit and, you could say, loyalty to old strategies. When the mind senses vulnerability and that moment of waking is peak vulnerability, before the daily identity is fully formed, the ego defaults to its most ancient defense, anticipation.
The what-if generator?
Precisely. The what-if machine kicks into high gear, that morning silence. The ego often uses it as a dangerous vacuum. It needs definition, it needs structure, it needs a plan.
So it scans for danger.
It scans the horizon. And if it doesn't find a clear external threat, it tends to generate internal ones. What if you mess up today? What if you're not prepared? What if something bad happens? You need to get ready now.
And it does this. Why? To feel in control.
Exactly. It operates under the assumption, often unconscious, that if it can anticipate a problem, it can manage the risk. It's a misguided attempt at ensuring safety through vigilance and control. Not out of malice, but out of this deep-seated programming.
But why does it seem to fail right when we're actually safe? What is it really afraid of in that quiet dawn moment?
Ultimately, it fears dissolution. It fears emptiness, nothingness.
Whoa.
In that quiet transition, before you fully clicked into your roles, parent, employee, partner, whatever, before the scaffolding of identity is firmly back in place for the day, the ego senses this groundlessness of just being.
And that's terrifying to it.
Deeply terrifying, because its core belief is that it must be solid, defined, and in control to survive. So, that frantic scramble to reestablish the me, to anchor itself, to build the story for the day, that internal effort, that panic, is what we often experience as the physical jolt of anxiety.
That makes so much sense. That explains the immediate urge to grab the phone, check emails, start the mental to-do list.
Yes, those are all actions to immediately rebuild the scaffolding. They are rituals of reinforcing the sense of self and control.
Acts of faith and the idea that I am in charge and need to hold things together.
Precisely. And this ties directly into a concept from Buddhist thought called vipassana. It means distortions of perception.
Okay, vipassana. How does that play into the morning dread?
It refers to how our minds habitually misperceive reality, which fuels suffering. There are a few key distortions relevant here. First, seeing permanence in what is actually fleeting.
Like thinking my job or my health is totally secure and unchanging.
Right. The ego clings to stability. The quiet morning where things feel less defined can unconsciously highlight the truth of impermanence, and the ego resists that, creating tension. Second, seeking lasting pleasure or satisfaction in things that are inherently unsatisfactory or stressful.
Like believing finishing my to-do list will finally bring peace.
Exactly. The anxiety becomes the prod. You haven't done enough yet to secure that lasting peace, which of course is an illusion. And third, the most profound one, perceiving a solid, independent self, where there is actually an interdependent, ever-changing process.
Cling to the idea of me.
Yes, that moment of waking where the sense of me feels thin or blurry, the ego panics and throws up its defenses, the anxiety to reassert its perceived solid existence.
So the anxiety isn't just a feeling, it's the the physical fallout from the ego, desperately trying to maintain these illusions, trying to force reality to fit its preferred picture.
You could definitely see it that way. It's trying to shore up a sense of permanence and control that doesn't actually align with reality. There's a lovely Tibetan analogy here, the mind as a wild horse. Upon waking, maybe in the dim light, the horse gets startled by its own shadow. The anxiety is that jumpiness, that startled reaction. Now, if you react by yelling at the horse, yanking the reins, trying to force it to calm down intellectually...
It just gets more spooked.
Exactly. You kick up more dust. The task, instead, is to approach it gently. Stand beside it. Use a soft rope of awareness, a gentle presence, to help it settle. Not fighting it, but being with it.
Which leads us to those deep patterns, the grooves worn into the mind. Samskaras, right?
Yes, samskara is a crucial concept here. Think of them as mental formations, imprints, or deep habitual tendencies. Like pathways in the brain that get reinforced through repetition, neuroplasticity, in modern terms.
So if I spent years reacting to uncertainty with worry and control...
That becomes a very deep groove, a default pathway. The morning anxiety, then, is often the physical manifestation of one of these ingrained patterns, these samskaras, surfacing.
Like an unhelpful program automatically running.
Absolutely. It could be the samskara of perfectionism kicking in, demanding you review potential failures before you're even out of bed. Or a deep-seated belief, a samskara, that you're fundamentally unsafe unless you're hypervigilant.
The belief that you have to constantly earn your right to exist, or be okay through effort.
That's a very common one. The ego, the watchman, influenced by these old patterns, demands proof of worthiness, not because of a current threat, but because that's the script it knows, recognizing it as a pattern, an old habit, rather than a fundamental truth about you that gives you power.
Okay, so realizing it's a pattern, not me, not reality.
Yeah.
So that feels like the key. If mindfulness sati isn't about forcing the mind empty, but changing the relationship to what's there, what does that look like? When your heart's already pounding because that old samskara just lit up.
It looks like choosing presence over panic. It's an active stance of non-identification, deliberately choosing not to get swept away. The river analogy is useful here.
Okay, the river.
Imagine your thoughts and feelings are like leaves, logs, debris floating down the river of your consciousness. The untrained mind, the ego, desperate for control, sees a leaf labeled disaster or failure floating by. What does it do?
Jumps in and grabs it. Tries to wrestle it, stop it.
Exactly. It jumps into the cold, turbulent water, gets entangled with the leaf, and often feels like it's drowning in the process. When you grab the leaf, you become the leaf. You identify completely with the fear or the worry.
Right.
The mindful mind, cultivated through practice, learns to sit calmly on the riverbank. It sees the disaster leaf float by. It acknowledges it. There's fear, or there's that old pattern of self-doubt again.
And just watches it go.
And lets it float on by. It recognizes, I am not the leaf. I am not the river. I am the awareness in which the river and the leaves appear.
I get that intellectually. Sitting on the bank sounds lovely. But man, when that physical pull is so strong, that compulsion to jump in and fix the anxiety, solve the problem, it feels almost impossible not to grab the leaf. Why is that compulsion so sticky?
Because likely that compulsion, that strategy actually served a purpose in the past. It was useful once.
How so?
Think about the story of Ananda and the raft. Ananda, despite being close to the Buddha, still struggled with doubts. The Buddha pointed out, You built a raft to cross the river, which was skillful. But now you're on the other side, on dry land, and you're still dragging the heavy raft with you.
The anxiety, the hypervigilance, that's the raft.
It is. Maybe that intense need for morning planning, that vigilance was absolutely necessary for you to navigate a chaotic childhood or a really high-pressure job phase. The alarm system was functional then.
It helped me survive.
It likely did. But now, perhaps you're on relatively dry land. You're safe in your bed. But the ego, the guardian, hasn't gotten the memo that the conditions have changed. It's still automatically deploying the old, heavy, now burdensome survival strategy.
Still dragging the raft. Wow. Okay, so the struggle isn't a sign of weakness now. It's just an outdated program running.
An outdated program that needs gentle, consistent retraining. Not judgment, retraining.
So we retrain it by consciously not grabbing the leaf, by resisting the urge to immediately solve or control.
Yes. By small, repeated acts of interrupting the pattern. Instead of leaping out of bed, grabbing the phone, launching into the mental checklist, you pause. You introduce a different response.
And this is where that very practical technique comes in.
Exactly. A concrete practice you can literally do tomorrow morning. When you wake up with that familiar tightness before you do anything else, stay put. Commit to just 3 conscious breaths, meeting the feeling with gentle awareness instead of the usual panic.
Okay, let's break down those 3 breaths. What's the first one?
First breath, acknowledge. Simply name what's present without judgment. As you breathe in and out, you might silently say to yourself, oh, this is anxiety, or feeling of urgency is here. Just labeling it.
What does naming it do?
It creates a little space. You separate the observer, you, from the observed, the feeling. It defines the anxiety as an event in your consciousness, not the entirety of your consciousness. It instantly makes it feel a bit less overwhelming.
Okay, breath 1. Acknowledge. What's breath 2?
Second breath, soften. This is the direct antidote to aversion, to that resistance, tanha. Resistance fuels anxiety. Softening means allowing. As you breathe in, notice where the tension is, maybe the chest, shoulders, jaw, stomach. As you breathe out, consciously invite those areas to soften, even just a tiny bit.
But giving it permission to be there.
Exactly. You
Right.
might even say inwardly, it's okay that this feeling is here right now. You're signaling to your nervous system that you're not going to fight it to the death. This de-escalates the panic because you're removing the resistance it feeds on.
Okay, acknowledge, then soften. And the third breath.
Third breath, widen. Anxiety tends to narrow our focus intensely under the perceived threat or problem. The third breath is about deliberately widening your attention back out to the full reality of the present moment.
How do you do that?
Feel the actual physical sensations. The weight of your body on the bed, the feeling of the sheets or the air on your skin. Notice any sounds, birds outside, the heating system, traffic. Notice the light in the room. You're intentionally bringing your awareness to all the other things that are also true in this moment, besides the anxiety.
So the anxiety becomes just one part of the picture, not the whole thing.
Precisely. It loses its monopoly on your experience. It becomes one strand in a much larger tapestry. It's still there perhaps, but it's held within a wider, more stable context.
Acknowledge, soften, widen.
Yeah.
That feels doable, manageable. And doing that consistently, what state does that cultivate?
It cultivates upekkha, equanimity.
Which isn't just being numb or not caring, right?
Not at all. It's not passive resignation. It's an active, engaged balance. It's the discovery that your core awareness, that fundamental sense of being, is actually unshakable, even when the surface of the mind is choppy with fear or worry. And every single time you meet that morning unease with this kind of presence, acknowledging, softening, widening, instead of the old panic and control patterns, you are literally retraining your nervous system. You're demonstrating through direct experience that you can be with discomfort without breaking.
And that weakens the ego's grip, the need for frantic control.
It does. The watchman starts to learn that not every rising shadow requires sounding the 5-alarm fire bell. It can begin to relax its hypervigilance and trust that you, the deeper awareness, can handle things. It finds its proper role as a helpful guardian, not a panic tyrant.
So following this path, it leads somewhere quite profound, doesn't it? The idea that the anxiety itself, the suffering, isn't just something to manage, but it's actually the raw material for waking up.
Yeah.
Kind of sacred alchemy.
That is the radical heart of it, yes. Your difficulties are not obstacles to your path. They are the path. The raw material for transformation is right there in the struggle. There's a concept in Tibetan Buddhism, Yanmong.
Yanmong, what does that mean?
It's often translated as afflictive emotions, or kleshas in Sanskrit. Things like anger, jealousy, pride, craving, and fear. But a deeper understanding is that these aren't inherently bad. They are potent energies that are currently distorted, currently causing suffering, but they are also wisdom in disguise.
Wisdom in disguise. How can something that feels as sharp and destructive as that morning anxiety possibly be wisdom?
Well, think about fear. When we resist it, when we're consumed by it, it's paralyzing. It makes us panic. It narrows our world. But fear, met with awareness, met with presence, what is its wisdom?
No, maybe caution, discernment.
Exactly. It's the energy of clarity, of intelligence that can assess situations. When purified, fear becomes the wisdom of discernment, the ability to see clearly, to recognize genuine danger from imagined threat, to act skillfully instead of just reacting blindly. As long as we push the fear away because it feels bad, we also push away the clarity it contains.
Like throwing out the baby with the bathwater because the water is dirty.
A perfect analogy. We discard the energy because its current manifestation is uncomfortable.
So that tremor I feel in the morning, it's not just noise, it's a call. Not a call to run, but maybe a call to return.
A call to return to your true nature, yes. Beneath the surface agitation of the anxiety, what's the deeper truth? Why does the ego get so activated? Often it's because underneath it all, you care.
Care about what?
You care about your life. You care about meaning, about connection, about authenticity. You have a deep longing for things to be okay, for yourself and maybe for others. This fundamental caring, this vulnerability, this sacred longing, that's your strength. But the ego often misinterprets it as weakness.
And tries to protect it by controlling everything.
Precisely. If you care this much, the ego reasons, then you must manage every variable, anticipate every threat to keep this precious thing safe. The anxiety is often a sign of your fidelity to that deeper caring, just expressed through the ego's lens of fear and control.
Whereas true aliveness isn't found in control.
It's found more in surrender, in the willingness to be with what is, even uncertainty. Think of that Zen story, the man chased by a tiger.
Oh yeah, he's hanging from a vine over a cliff.
Right, a tiger above, a chasm below, and then he sees two mice, one white, one black, like day and night, gnawing away at the vine he's clinging to. His situation is objectively terrible, completely out of his control. And what does he do? He sees a wild strawberry growing on the cliff face nearby. He reaches out, plucks it, and eats it, tasting it fully.
In the midst of total peril.
In the midst of total peril, the anxiety is the tiger and the mice and the failing vine. But the strawberry, the richness of the present moment, the capacity for presence, for taste, for life, is always available, even right alongside the fear. If only we can pause the frantic attempt to control the uncontrollable situation.
So the practice isn't about defeating the anxiety, but about honoring its message, maybe, without obeying its command to panic.
Beautifully put. Honor the intention behind the anxiety, the deep drive to protect without getting hijacked by the strategy of panic and control.
How do we do that tangible?
We can practice a small, kind gesture. When the anxiety arises, maybe put a hand gently on your heart, or wherever you feel the tension most strongly. Feel the racing, feel the tightness, and just silently, inwardly whisper something like, "Thank you. Thank you for trying so hard to protect me. I see you. It's okay. We're actually safe right now."
Acknowledging that protective part, not pushing it away.
Yes. You're not rejecting it. You're meeting it with kindness, acknowledging its history, its loyalty, and gently reassuring it. That simple act of acceptance and gratitude can be incredibly transformative. It soothes the frantic guardian.
That reminds me of another story you mentioned. The student plagued by fear and doubt.
Ah, yes. The student keeps trying to meditate, but fear and doubt keep interrupting him. He goes to his Zen master, exasperated. How do I get rid of these things?
And the master says,
And the master smiles and says, don't try to get rid of them. Invite them in for tea.
invite fear and doubt in for tea.
Yes. Treat them not as enemies crashing the gate, but as, perhaps, slightly unruly guests, or even as messengers, teachers. What are they had to show you? Where are you still feeling insecure? Where are you clinging too tightly? Where are you resisting reality? The fear points directly to the places needing gentle attention and awareness.
They're not obstacles to peace, they're informants.
Exactly. They show you precisely where the work lies, where the potential for growth is.
Okay, so this leads us to maybe the most radical idea of all. That this causeless anxiety we started with actually has the deepest cause imaginable.
I truly believe it does. It's often the soul's quiet rebellion, a rebellion against living on autopilot perhaps, against playing small,
Mm.
against betraying your own deepest values or sense of truth.
A rebellion against a life that doesn't feel fully authentic.
It could be. It's like an internal compass, maybe slightly malfunctioning or overly sensitive, but it's pointing towards something that needs attention. That morning unease, seen this way, isn't a sign you're broken, it's a sign of your fidelity.
Fidelity.
Fidelity to feeling, fidelity to truth, fidelity to the raw, unedited reality of your own human experience, with all its vulnerability and longing. It's a sacred alarm bell, perhaps, signaling not danger, but an opportunity for awakening, for transforming that raw energy into wisdom.
Wow. That completely flips the script.
Yeah.
The feeling I've dreaded and fought against might actually be my most difficult, but also my most loyal guide back to myself.
It's a profound possibility, isn't it? You stop chasing a piece out there and begin discovering it right here in the willingness to be present with the tremor itself. ###cat outro.
So we've journeyed through this really common, often painful experience of morning anxiety. And we've sort of reframed it, haven't we? Moving from seeing it as a personal flaw or a malfunction to understanding it potentially as a messenger. An ancient signal from a part of us, the ego, that's trying its best to be a guardian, even if its methods are a bit outdated or intense.
Right, like that watchman still sounding the alarm long after the danger has passed, or mistaking shadows for threats.
And we saw how the real suffering often comes from resisting the feeling, from grabbing that disaster leaf in the river. And that the path isn't about stopping the river, but learning to sit on the bank.
Learning to meet the waves with upekkha, with that balanced, steady awareness, finding the ground of being that's stable beneath the surface turbulence, acknowledging the raft, but choosing not to keep dragging it on dry land.
It really becomes about changing the relationship to the feeling, not necessarily eliminating the feeling itself.
Exactly. It's about cultivating the quiet courage to simply be where you are, tremor and all, and maybe even trusting that there's a perfection within that imperfect process.
Which leaves us, and everyone listening, with a kind of invitation for tomorrow morning, doesn't it? One that asks us not to shrink away from the discomfort, but to lean in, just a little.
Yes. So maybe consider this tonight, as you prepare for rest. What if that unease you might feel upon waking isn't actually a sign that something is deeply wrong with you? Maybe it's a whisper, a signal that something important, something essential about your own inner landscape is ready to be seen, ready to be revealed.
So when that familiar feeling arises tomorrow,
Don't immediately turn away or try to fix it. Just pause, maybe place a hand on your heart, and softly, with genuine curiosity, ask it, okay, what are you here to show me today? What part of my true nature are you pointing towards?
and the answer won't be a neat, tidy thought.
Probably not. It'll likely come in the quiet space after the breath, in the simple, courageous act of staying present with yourself, uncertainty and all. And right there, in that presence, you might find you're not lost in the anxiety at all. You're actually finding your way back. You're being found.